What does it mean to be a man in today's evolving world? How do we as men not only step up as men in this world, but transform the definition of masculinity itself? To be the lovers, the heroes, and the role models that the world so desperately craves. How do we begin to recreate our connection to manhood? This is that movement. We are ushering in a new generation of men and a new definition of masculine power to radically transform your sex life, your love life, your work life, and your world. I am Destin Garrick, and this is The Evolved Masculine, redefining sex, power, and success. Been in gung-ho movement over here. First of all, really excited about the launch of the Evolved Masculine Path Australia, which now feels fully grounded into reality. If you listened a few weeks ago, I've been sharing about, I was sharing audios from the presentation that I did in Byron Bay, Australia, where we launched EMP Australia, and now we officially have our first men enrolled into this new group, so it's really fully grounded into this reality. And it's just another one of those notches on that journey of, if I dream it, envision it, one way or another, I can make it happen. And this thing is they're very rooted in the third chakra, that your sense of will, your ability to make things happen, to manifest your desires, as well as your individuality and the healthy aspect of the ego. And so I raised that aspect to I suppose to ask you, like, what do you want to create in the world? What are you creating in the world? Where do you really feel that connection to your own will, your ability to have an idea or a vision and not let up, do whatever you need to do in order to make it happen and make it manifest in this world? It ends up being a big part of the work that I do with the men that come into my world, whether through EMP, through the Evolved Masculine Path, or through my one-on-one work, is I tend to attract men who are really connected to their hearts, really good guys, as well as guys who are on some form of conscious or spiritual path. But they're not necessarily, and this varies in degree, of course, fully connected to that personal power, that their real capacity to affect change both within themselves and in the world around. And you may have heard in that podcast from the Byron Bay presentation, I'm increasingly being vocal about this is a call to you to claim your power, to step into it, to own your power. And again, this isn't it would be nice, hey man, you need to own your power, really, it will make your life better. I mean, yeah, great, wonderful. I do want that for you on one level. But on another level, it's like, look around, man. It's not like, step into your fucking power. We need you. Right now, more than ever, we need fucking warriors. To put it in my new age speak, we could say warriors of light. Whatever. I don't care. We need good men who are not content to just not do shitty things and call themselves good men, but good men who will fucking own their power and their capacity to fucking do something, to draw a line in the sand and say, enough. No more, not on our watch. Something's got to change. It starts right here. It starts with me, and I am doing something now. So, if you feel like that hits you, good. If you feel like I'm calling you out or challenging you in some way, you're right. And if you listen to these podcasts and you're drawn in some way, trust that and reach out. I do all this really for you. If you're resonating, you are the one that I'm doing this for. And it's because I believe that potential, that owning of your own power, that capacity to create the life of your dreams, both for you individually as well as collectively, our ability to create that in the world, the world that we really want to see, is up to us. We do have the capacity, and I'm here to help you. I'm here to serve you on that. Between what's going on with our EMP Australia group, as well as here to together, no matter where you are in the world, we are pulling together our new group of guys right now. And every day I'm in these conversations with men, as well as Michael, my main lead out here in North America, and Dave in Australia, are in these conversations with men every day to find, who are you? What's your heart's deepest desire? What is it that you're really wanting and needing? Where's your struggle? Where's your pain? What is it? Who is the man that you're really meant to be here in this world? And why aren't you there already? And what will it take for you to step into being him? And through those conversations, we get clear on pulling together the right set of men for this next round, or in Australia, the inaugural round of this of the Evolved Masculine Path. And if this resonates with you, reach out to us. You can just send me an email at destin@evolvedmasculine.com, and we'll put you through our proper process, or go to evolvedmasculine.com and check things out there and send us a message. So we're here for you. Now is the time, not some months from now, right now. Okay. So with all that said, my guest today is Arden Leigh.
Hi, Destin.
That wasn't exactly my intro, but it was the start of it. Arden is a dear friend. She, in all honesty, I first noticed Arden the way that a lot of people first notice Arden, through her beautiful and sexy photos that in the past even more heavily populated her social media. And there was also something that felt very resonant for me, because during that time I was in the tail end of my erotic rock star years, and there was a certain sense of kinship with that, and but also like, who's this? And then we met, and I think that our first meeting definitely had some undertones or overtones of flirtation, but very quickly there was this, the deeper sense was, there is a sense of kinship here. There's some shared life experience. It sets both of us, makes us both fucking weirdos in the world. And really not necessarily easy to find people who have any understanding, especially by experience, of our life paths. And yet here there is that shared understanding. And as we continue to explore, I continue to see just the depth of her intelligence, her wisdom, her incredible way with words that I find inspiring, honestly. Her as a prolific writer, and her blog of Weapons of Mass Seduction, which is, again, brilliant wordplay. And she's also a firebrand. And this is one of the things I'm interested in talking with her about as well, because if you pay attention to her on Twitter or on Facebook or engage with her in any way, careful. She comes with a warning. She doesn't hesitate to put people in their place. And it's fascinating to watch, sometimes uncomfortable, but I feel like I've learned a lot just witnessing her journey, and how she's continuing to soften herself, grow, and I don't know. I think we've been powerful mirrors for one another. So with that, I expect that you'll get a lot from this today as well. Welcome, Arden Leigh.
Hi, thank you for having me, Destin. It's so funny you say that, because I've actually, I think what people don't understand about me responding online is that's actually me really trying to tampen things down, and I'm making a conscious effort in the last couple of years to really view other people's views with compassion, and to bridge that gap rather. So what you're seeing is there's really this compulsion in me for honest communication, where it physically pains me to not speak my truth. In fact, I think if I were better at concealing things sometimes, I think it would make my life a lot easier, because it's, I tend to be a lightning rod for people's feelings about whatever issues I'm expressing. But it's so yeah, I have been consciously working on not being as reactive online. And of course, it also relates back to, I actually have PTSD from online interactions because in 2008 I was doxxed and I had people who literally were trying to put out information about me on the internet because I was a sex worker at the time, as a pro-dom, and they were trying to out my location, my relationship status, my legal name, and essentially saying like, here is this woman's personal information. Go stalk her, go kill her, essentially.
Why would anybody do that?
Oh, in the pro-dom community? Oh, it's not exactly a hotbed of mental health,
So was somebody else in the community who was doxing you?
Oh, yeah, it was. I still don't know because, of course, they were anonymous accounts, but I'm pretty sure I narrowed it down to 2 other pro-doms who were competition of mine, and I was quite successful when I worked as a pro-dom in New York. But what this leads back to is that I actually have, when people argue with me online, like when people get into, like if I sense that I'm being attacked online, I actually feel a trigger that reminds me of being afraid for my life. So they're like, I am trying to, now that I understand this, I'm trying to also interact with people and be like, well, just because someone is being a jerk to me, just because someone says, oh, that's stupid, or someone is coming on and, citing political views that I find offensive or whatever, I have to remind myself now consciously, like, that they're not actually trying to kill me.
That's a good thing to remember. I think sometimes the person that you've reacted to may have to remind themselves that you're not trying to kill them.
Ouch. Yeah, no, I really am trying to get better at that because I really do. I care. Obviously, the reasons I go out and I create material at all, and the reasons that I share my experience is because I care about people, and I care about humanity, and I care about people being able to live their best life and live their own truth. And it's a very Aquarian trait. I just had my birthday because I'm an Aquarius, and it's a very Aquarian trait that we have love and compassion for humanity, but we hate people.
I think I've noticed that in you.
Yeah.
So who are you in the world? You are a published author, and at the same time, I'm curious how you relate to the book that you wrote so many years ago.
Yeah, my relationship to it has definitely changed.
What was the book?
It's called The New Rules of Attraction, and it's a book for women on dating and relationships, where I essentially took what I learned from the sex industry, from being a pro-dom, a professional fetish worker, and learning how to market myself in that world, and also what I learned about men and about sexuality from being in this kind of verboten corner and seeing a lot of people's secrets. And I combined that with what I learned studying male pickup artist tactics and being in the pickup community, and kind of synthesized this information into a basic curriculum for women about how to be proactive in going after the guys that they wanted.
Wow. And so I know that you received a fair amount of press at the time. How do you relate to what you wrote in the book at that time? I know we all grow and evolve, and I'm just curious how you feel about things today.
Oh my God. Well, I think what's really funny right now is that I wrote a book essentially on seduction and on a sort of curriculum to follow for how to seduce people. And I'm now living in the paradox of understanding that while those tools were helpful to me, helped me overcome social anxiety, helped me to help give me training wheels for interacting with people, for starting, creating relationships, et cetera, et cetera. And I've had numerous people come back to me and say, give me that same feedback and say, thank you, this helped me, this improved my life, and blah, blah, blah. I'm now living with the paradox of understanding how helpful seduction was to me in growing as a person and in achieving my dreams, with the understanding now that essentially, if I believe that I need seduction as my magic feather, if I need to practice seduction, or if I believe that my worth comes from my ability to practice this set of skills in a relationship, then essentially what I'm putting out to the universe is that I'm not worthy as I am. So I'm now having this really weird about face where in the past year I've really been called to examine pretty much everything that I self-identified with. Every label that I gave myself to say I am this. So, you know, I was like,
what are those labels?
Yeah. So I'm a seductress first and foremost. You know, I'm schooled in the art of seduction. I am a seduction coach and a seduction practitioner. And also submission. I am kinky. I am submissive. I am a service-oriented submissive. This is my sexuality. Furthermore, polyamory. I was like, you know, I do not subscribe to monogamy. I think, you know, I think the default monogamous state of our society is, you know, primarily responsible for, you know, so many relationship problems and breakups that happen. And I was I was forced this year I guess I wasn't forced. I was invited. I was invited to look at these 3 labels and how they were holding me back from getting the relationship that I ultimately, as an adult, want. You know, not just the fun, you know, the fun adventures that I had. And I'm very grateful for those. And I think like my life would not be complete without those adventures that I had. But in really looking and saying like, okay, I'm done with the bullshit and I'm ready to actually have a relationship that is meaningful and like actually intimate, not this limited view of intimacy that I really thought, that I didn't even know like I was limiting my view of intimacy to before.
What was that view and where is it now?
My view of intimacy before was, if I make room and space for you to show up in your full sexuality, then I will get to see all of your darkest corners. And I can also share with you mine for the purpose of both of us releasing shame. And that's intimacy. And what I didn't realize was that
before we go there, what you just laid out is very powerful.
Thanks.
You know what I mean?
It's not enough.
I guess I just feel like it's worth acknowledging that there's a lot of beauty and a lot of power in what you just laid out, and something that I think can still be of service to quite a few people.
Thank you.
And then what?
Yeah. So I thought, but that was my complete picture of intimacy. And what that ended up looking like is I ended up looking very much like a courtesan, where I was like, I'm going to create this beautiful world and this beautiful setting for you to play and for us to play together, where I can show you all of my fantasies and you can come and also ask to live out your fantasies and we can do all of this together. And the part of myself that I wasn't bringing to my relationships, I was in the car once with just like a friend of mine, just a female friend, and I was playing her this song because she was like, Arden, play me like some of the music that you really are into or whatever. I was like, oh well, this is like my favorite song, and I was like, listen to this guitar part and listen to like, do you hear where this like, oh my god, and like do you hear how the drums are syncopated on the bridge and it's so cool, and then like the lyrics come back in and he says this and that, and I was just geeking out about this song, and she was like, I really like listening to you talk about music. And I was like, I never talk about it. I got made fun of for my musical taste, like growing up, because I used to listen to like musical theater, you know? So I listened to like Broadway growing up. So I was like, I never do. And she's like, you don't show this side of yourself to the guys you date, do you? And I was like, no, of course not. I date musicians, and I like, you know, I have terrible taste in music. Like, why would I open myself up to that? And like, you know, and I thought about that, and I was like, wow, I'm a very different person around my close friends. I show this side of myself that I'm assuming with my lovers is inconvenient. Like they're not going to want to watch this movie with me. They're not going to want to like, I'm going to play music that I know that they'll like, you know, I'm going to do things that I know will be appealing to them or whatever. And I was like hiding this side of me that, that really likes to geek out about the stuff that I like. And maybe that's like, I was like, wow, there, you know, this thing that I'm doing with my lovers, with my people, that I'm creating this beautiful world. It's a really generous gift, but I'm curating their experience of me so hard that I'm leaving out all the parts of me that I'm unconsciously assuming are going to be in any way inconvenient to them.
So this is a big part of that overlap that I spoke of when I was playing Erotic Rockstar, which is how I usually describe it these days. It was very much being that ideal lover that I used my incredible sensitivity that I have to feel into a particular woman, as well as women's in general, fantasies of their ideal lover in a man, or you know, a man who can sweep them off their feet and give them a powerful erotic adventure that rocks their fucking world and X, Y, and Z. And I got very, very good at it. But I got very, very good at it by giving them what I thought that they wanted of me, by getting very good at figuring out what that is and showing up as that. And
Yep.
And on one hand, it's a powerful gift.
Yeah.
But it's also unsustainable. I didn't understand why then when I did dive into relationships, like after about 6 months, they would go south so much, because by 6 months in, I couldn't. Other parts of me were aching for expression in some way, and then
Oh no, man! I lasted years. They just didn't believe I was real. That was the problem.
well, you weren't.
Yeah, exactly.
You weren't, you know?
I was like their imaginary friend.
And some part, you know, the fuller parts of me, including my darker aspects, including the parts of me that aren't just 100% present, totally strong, in just taking care of her at all times, in that masculine driving force space, etc., all the time. But I am that, and I can be weak. I have my flaws. I have my points where I am unconscious, where I'm not present, where I can be clumsy, where my less integrated, unhealthy aspects of my feminine would come up or out. My little nerdy or geeky interests, all these different parts that just suddenly would feel like they would blindside her, because she's like, wait, this isn't. Who are you?
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
The fantasy has just been shattered, and I didn't. My story for myself during the painful points of this is that just further reinforced my belief that no one could actually love me for all of who I really am.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. I had that same experience. Yeah.
But that wasn't it at all.
That's the paradox, though, is that on the one hand, this ability to seduce really does, it is empowering. It opens doors for you. You can create connections that you would not have been able to otherwise.
Sure.
But at the same time, like, yeah, there is that balance. You can use those tools to create connection, to create understanding and empathy between you and another person, you know, to be able to like use the observational tools of the seducer to really understand someone. But then if you're just hoarding away that information and just showing up as like only the parts of it that fit, then you're like, that's kind of like, it's, yeah, you're like the person behind the curtain, you know?
Aside from being false advertising, what you end up doing, I believe, is attracting people who want that and who want the fantasy. And you're not necessarily going to get the person who actually loves you.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're actually not looking for that fantasy. They're looking for you.
Yeah. And as a woman, I think so much of being that male gaze fantasy was about I was like, if I appear to not want commitment, if I'm cool with casual sex, if I'm, and that was why polyamory for me so much was, I don't identify as completely monogamous either, because I still have my same beliefs about monogamy kind of being silly as an unconscious default, default relationship status in our society. But showing up as poly was very much my way of being like, oh, hey, I'm totally chill. I'll let you fuck other girls. Like, who doesn't want that? Like, look, you have all the benefits of a girlfriend and all the freedom of bachelorhood. Like, it's like, it's that thing that you think every man wants. But the men showing up who want that, like, don't want to commit to you. And then you're like plea bargaining for commitment, which is essentially saying, I'm not worthy of your commitment as you are. Like, why would you ever want to be with me? Like, why would you ever want to be with me alone? Why would you ever want to show up for me if I could give you the option of not, and if I give you the option of not showing up fully for me, then of course you'll do that. And I've had like, Jesus Christ, like I had, I've just had that, like, I just really had the wind knocked out of me in terms of that of examining that belief and realizing that the men who would want to show up for someone in what I was actually looking for would not be looking for a girl in the poly community. Like,
that's probably true.
Like, that's not where they're gonna go, yeah.
So, it sounds like a complete 180 from how you were living your life, how you were identifying things that you were putting out into the world as standing for. I'm curious if you've gotten any blowback from people who identify with these things that you did identify with.
Definitely from the poly community. Definitely I got blowback there just because one of my posts about why poly wasn't working for me kind of went viral within the community. Like on Facebook, it got shared out like, something like 350 times or something like that. And people who were really entrenched in polyamory as part of their identity. I don't think I received blowback because of no one came forward and said, I think you're being hypocritical. Like no one said you've done the blowback did not come from the 180. The blowback came from people in the poly community who were like, I think you're just judging poly, or you're just, you're like, you just encountered the assholes in the scene or whatever, which like, maybe yes, maybe no. And again, I'm sure it works for some people. I was just like, here's some pitfalls that we're not talking about. I'm not trashing poly. I'm just saying this is stuff that you're not looking at. And these are ways that I think you need to examine your behavior that I have not yet heard other people in the community articulate. And, specifically about the dangers of poly people dating, partnered poly people dating single people, of being someone who is solo poly, but looking for a primary, which is what I was for so long, and identifying the problems in the way that having to be like at the bottom of everyone's totem pole if I'm going to even start dating them was, and I'm not saying that necessarily had to happen every time, but it felt like everyone is coming from this place of abundance and I'm coming from this place of starvation. And there's so many people who are willing to offer me casual sex because it's poly, like, let's just all have this free love kind of ideal. And no one who's willing to partner with me, because that requires either them rearranging their current relationships, or it requires the same amount of commitment that I was looking for anyway within monogamy with people who are less likely to even want to do that, So the way that was eroding my own self-worth, that I felt like all of a sudden I was like, I feel like everyone's telling me I'm worth casual sex, but I'm not worth committing to. And that's like, I'm starting to internalize that belief, and it's really harmful. So I put that out there. And of course there were a lot of people who were like, this isn't poly's fault. This is just you, or like, you're just doing poly wrong, or like whatever it was.
Well, if it was shared so many times, clearly it was resonating with quite a few people as well.
Yeah. And I also got that feedback as well, which was nice. But I also recognize I'm like, me 5 years ago, I would have said the same thing. Because I was so entrenched in, I am not going to be monogamous because that doesn't work, because I tried that and that didn't work. And therefore I am so attached to my new ideology. Like, this is the new atheism is my new God, essentially. It's like, people do that. They're like, I have left the church and now I'm going to come and knock on your door and tell you that there's no God. And it's like, no, you're doing the same thing. So I really looked at the ways that, I really empathize with those people. I'm like, no, you're still so stuck to your poly ideology being the right way, because monogamy failed you so hard that if anyone threatens your poly is the answer, then that's going to shake up your foundations. And for me, that was also true of submission. Like, even as much as 2 years ago, if someone had said, I think your submission is unhealthy, I would have been like, fuck you, don't squick my squee. This is my orientation. Like, this is my kink. You can't judge me. Because I was so good at like unconsciously lawyering myself into this corner where I was so defending all of my unhealthy choices with all of these like wholly defensible identity politics. Like, no, if you say that this is unhealthy, then you're kink shaming me, And I did that. Like, I did that so many times. So I think that's where that blowback came from.
So are you saying, like, is there a way in which people can do kink and submission in a way that's very healthy?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think so, Like, who am I to tell people, as long as they're happy, obviously, like, who am I to judge what's healthy or not healthy? I mean, I guess as a relationship coach, that's like probably actually my job, is to judge what's healthy and not healthy. But I've certainly seen plenty of relationships where people are full-time dominant submissive and they really love each other and respect each other, and everything by all appearances seems to work. For me, my submission was, a way of, what I came to realize is that my submission and my service specifically were a way of me supplementing, because I didn't feel I was worthy of relationship without that. It's like, if I'm giving you blowjobs and making you a steak dinner, and if I'm not doing all of these cortisone service submissive things, if I'm not letting you fully express yourself, and by letting you do whatever the fuck you want to me in bed, if I have needs, if I am meeting your needs, then maybe I'll be able to earn some of my needs being met. Like, maybe I'll get a couple crumbs, essentially. And this is stuff that was programmed into me in like kind of early toxic relationships. So I'm really like looking at undoing that now. But the reason it was so hard for me on an embodied level to let go of my unworthiness story, even as I knew I was getting more attractive, I mean, quote unquote, like, obviously that's subjective, but like, even as I was feeling more confident in myself, even as I was racking up all of these qualities, these tangible things I could name that felt like, okay, look how cool I am. Like, I would be a great girlfriend. Like, I'm a lingerie model. I'm a published author. I'm all these cool things. I can make steak or whatever. Like, the reason that despite all of that self-improvement, I was still on an embodied level clinging to this story of unworthiness was that I realized it was the pedestal upon which my submission was propped. As in, if I knock out this pedestal, is my submission going to fall and shatter? Because if I truly felt worthy, would I still want to serve? And my service is my greatest source of pleasure. So am I losing my greatest source of pleasure by giving up my belief that I am inherently unworthy of relationship without it?
What if this was the new normal in your sex life? Hi, I'm Destin Garrick, masculine empowerment coach and creator of enticingdesire.com. And I'm here to tell you that yes, all of this is possible and more. Learn to become the lover that women remember, the one that she brags about to her friends. Head on over to enticingdesire.com to claim your free 24-minute introductory training to becoming the best lover she's ever had. I have 19 years of education, training, and experience in the field of sexuality, and I can tell you that I have seen complete transformations in men from the application of the simple principles presented in this video. Increases in confidence, performance, and satisfaction. With no pills required, no tricks, no gimmicks. This is an introduction to an entirely new way of being that will spark her authentic craving for you and your body. Head on over to enticingdesire.com now and evolve your sexual consciousness. So that's a mouthful. So what comes up for me as I'm hearing you speak all of that is as a sense of where is it coming from, really? That like what you're describing in that change, it doesn't necessarily need to mean no more steak and blowjobs.
Exactly.
It's a matter of where is it coming from within you? Is it coming from a place of I must do this in order to be worthy, or is it coming from I feel so filled from within. I have a deep sense of internal validation, and from this place of fullness, may I serve you because of the ways in which it lights me up to light you up.
Yeah, exactly. And what I realized was that if, going around and delivering this party line about, oh, my submission is a choice. My submission is healthy because it's a choice. Well, I realized that if you're stuck between your submission and hating yourself, that's not actually a choice. Like that's, of course, you're going to adhere to those standards in yourself if your other option is like not feeling worthy or what have you. So for me, it was very much, I was worried about like, am I still going to want to do all these things if I felt like I was truly worthy without it? Am I still going to be motivated?
Today, sitting here, do you feel that you are worthy without it?
Yeah. It's weird.
So Arden's live here in the studio with me, which is always my favorite thing. And I just really enjoyed her facial expression in that moment. I don't even know how to describe it. So
I wrinkled my nose. Yeah. It was like I smelled something bad. It was like, I don't know about this. This feels strange.
It feels strange to feel worthy without needing to submit in this way.
Yeah, it feels very new. I feel like, honestly, I aged 10 years in the last year.
Well, the way you spoke, that doesn't necessarily sound positive. What do you mean by aging 10 years in the past year? Now you feel old?
I feel more mature. I feel wiser, but I feel like a grown up.
Yeah.
I feel like all of a sudden I'm not, I'm really not allowing myself to be held back in the same ways that I was in say like my early to mid 20s, and just looking at myself, being able to stand where I am right now and look at myself then and say, oh, look what a crazy 20s person I was then, like look what a 25-year-old I was, rather than like still identifying with my 25-year-old self. I've pulled myself outside of those behaviors and been like, oh, okay, that's what I was doing then. And these were the lessons I learned. And now I'm moving on to the next phase of life. And as you know, astrologically, we went into, and numerologically, we went into, we completed a 9-year cycle at the end of 2016, because it was a 9-year, 2 + 0 + 1 + 6 is 9. And 2017 is a 1-year, 2 + 0 + 1 + 7 is 10, 1 + 0 is 1. So if you subscribe to that belief, in September, which was, 9/9/2016. So September 9th, we passed through a Stargate, essentially. Like the 999 is a very powerful thing. So we passed through 9/9/2016, which is 9. So we passed through this like 999 thing, and going into like that sort of prepares us to go into the next 9-year cycle. So you're supposed to wrap up everything that you started around like 2007, 2008, when the last, 9-year cycle ended and went into another 1 year. So the things that I picked up in 2007 and like early 2008 were seduction primarily. That's 2007 was when I read Robert Greene's The Art of Seduction.
That might have been the year I read it as well.
Yeah, isn't that man? Yeah, the synchronicity with you and me is eerie.
I honestly, everything that you just described, maybe our timing is slightly different, but barely. It wasn't this past year necessarily that I feel like, I just suddenly matured 10 years. It was a couple years ago, maybe 3. But it was like night and day. It was just like, I'm in a completely different phase of my life. Yeah. I don't actually identify with youth anymore.
Yeah.
Which is weird.
It's super weird, right? It's super weird. Yeah.
People now look to me more in the like somewhat elder mentorship type of role. And it's like, okay, I'm in this phase at like 36 or something. I suddenly felt like I entered middle age or something.
Yeah, I totally get what you're. And even you said something to me over the summer. I think I was confiding in you about like, I was like, wow, I feel like all of a sudden I feel like I have a lot of influence and I'm creating change, especially in my spiritual practice. And you were like, well, Arden, you're a leader. And I was like, that's weird. I don't know how I feel about that. So, yeah.
Yeah, but it's true. So in our pre-interview, we were speaking about this video that you made around the time of the Women's March, and some of what you see on the larger scale of what's going on between men and women. Do you mind if we like sidestep into that?
Yeah, actually, it's a pretty good segue because I think that in talking about my submission was very specific to this very patriarchal fantasy woman, that definitely came out of the feedback that I was getting from the larger world about what men desired in a woman. And so much what they desire is so many times what they desire is ease and convenience, and certainly beauty, sexuality, permission, submission, not questioning their judgment. It's like, here's a woman showing up in gorgeous luxury lingerie who's going to cook you a steak and give you a blowjob and, and still let you fuck other girls. It's a very,
there is something that sounds good about that.
It is a very, yeah.
Don't get me wrong. There's some part of me that's like, and at the same time, I think I've also come to recognize the limitations of that fantasy.
But see, it's that reaction in you that you just gave me that that I was like, if I can make men feel that way, I will be safe. They won't reject me. They won't. If I can be all of that, who wouldn't want that? They'd be kicking themselves for not. I mean, like most of my exes do kick themselves, but it's like that doesn't mean that. Even though they want that fantasy, that doesn't mean that they're going to show up for me. And so many times it's even been about like, this feels too good to be true. Like, I don't understand this. You're going to leave me because I'm not bringing as much to the table as you are. You're starting to make me feel insecure because you're so perfect in every fucking moment that I have to start picking on you. Like, I have to start finding things about you to criticize, in order to knock you down a peg because I haven't done the same work on myself. I'm not ultimately bringing anything to the table or whatever.
That also is indicative of the men that you were choosing and attracting in.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Because I bought into their false advertising the same way that they were buying into mine, But ultimately, I guess maybe I kept up the fantasy and they didn't, maybe.
It's a hard fantasy to keep up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So larger dynamics of what's going on in the world.
Thank you for so the way that relates to the larger dynamics that are going on is essentially I'm saying I gave up this needing to be this fantasy creature because I saw that what's going on in our societal structure is that is the standard by which women are judged to be worthy, by this kind of toxic hierarchy that we have going on right now, is their ability to submit, their ability to be pleasing and to be convenient and sexual. And men are being judged right now on their wealth and their power and their influence and their ability even to maybe not to directly oppress women, but maybe a little bit, maybe even directly, you know, maybe because we do have all this praise for, you know, oh, my bitches and hoes kind of a culture, you know, like I have this harem, you know, men are judged in their worth by like how many, you know, how many women can you have influence over, you know, how many hoes and how many area codes, you know, how many women do you have the wealth and the power and influence to keep supporting, keep juggling, et cetera, you know? So we have these two standards that are two polarities, our masculine and feminine polarities are each judged by, that really contribute to this toxic culture of exclusivity where any men or women who don't fit their respective boxes are judged as less worthy. So if you're a woman and you're not attractive, it's like, you know, why are we listening to you? You shouldn't, you know, people would be like, why are we listening to Hillary Clinton? She's ugly. You know, like you see that on the internet, you know, in ways that men are not judged. Like no one said we shouldn't listen to Bill Clinton. He has a big, ugly red nose. You know, if they said we shouldn't listen to Bill Clinton, it was for, you know, for other reasons, you know, but and then, you know, of course, men who don't fit their respective box, you know, are called, you know, a cuck, a beta, you know, just like a loser, you know, man who can't like get his shit together. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with being in your feminine as a woman and being, you know, cultivating beauty and cultivating pleasure and cultivating like, you know, not even like superficial beauty standards, but just like making the world a more beautiful, more empathic place. And there's nothing wrong with being a man and being like a provider and saying, I'm going to provide stability and I'm going to, you know, like if you want to embody your gender polarity in that manner, that's fine. But saying that that's where your worthiness comes from, especially in this very hardened, very limited view of what that looks like in society, what it looks like to be beautiful, what it looks like to be powerful, where that specifically correlates to, to physical looks for women and to wealth and power for men is just, it's awful. And it's really toxic. It's not helping anybody. Nobody's happy under this, you know, and what it leads to is relationships where because you can't show up in your fullness, whether you're a man or a woman, then you lack emotional intimacy and your relationships fall apart. And, you know, then like 5 years down the line, you know, you're cheating, you're going to strip clubs, you're on Ashley Madison, and women are just like spending your money on Louis Vuitton handbags and just, you know, and cheating with the cabana boy or like, you know, whatever it is. Like this is essentially this larger dynamic that is at play in society is the thing that is keeping people from showing up in their fullness, which is keeping them from emotional intimacy, which is the key to long lasting relationships that are happy.
So you're speaking of, they're in their fullness.
Yeah.
What does it mean to you for a man or woman to show up in their fullness?
I think it means doing the work on yourself to look in the mirror and examine what makes you happy. I think it also means what we were talking about earlier about, are you showing up with your lovers the same way that you show up with your friends? Are you letting them see the parts of you that are even, you know, that are not super convenient? You know, are you letting them see the parts of yourself that you're afraid of, that you're scared is going to get you rejected, you know? And for me, it's like, oh, I was teased about being a dork for liking musical theater when I grew up. So like secretly I'm worried that like, that any of my musical taste is something that you're not going to like, you know, and you're going to like reject me for that or whatever. And, you know, for a man like, you know, like Donald Trump, it's like, you know, the part of himself that he's scared of right now in the public eye is like the part of him that like didn't get many people out to his inauguration. Like, oh wow, maybe you're not the most powerful man because like you got the presidency, but like it's still not enough for you because, you know, they're like, oh well, I didn't have the most, you know, people at my inauguration or whatever. Like this culture of still like proving. And I think it's that part of you that's like, what if Donald Trump was like, I'm scared. You know, I ran on this platform. I made up a bunch of stuff that I thought Republican voters were going to want. And now I don't know how I'm going to follow through. I didn't really expect this to happen. I now have to call up Rudy Giuliani and ask him, how can we legally ban Muslims? You know, like, hey, I made all these promises. How am I supposed to do it now? Like if people can look at those parts of themselves where they're actually being honest with themselves and where they're afraid and where they're feeling weak and, you know, where they're feeling scared to move forward. I think that's what emotional honesty is all about. Does that make sense? I feel like I'm jumping around a lot today because there's a lot of information that wants to come out.
Yeah, well, it's very clearly a lot of information that you have within you, and a lot of incredibly valuable to share. So knowing that we have a majority male audience of men who are really committed to being the best man that they can be, and on this quest to better understand what that even means, or redefining their own selves and their masculinity, what words do you have for him? What do we need from men today, especially as a woman? What do you, in this climate that we're in, where everything seems fucked, what do you want to see from men like this?
What I want to see from men is, there's a couple of things. I'm going to go from like macro to micro.
Great.
So on the macro level, I want men to be comfortable around empowered women. If they can be comfortable around empowered women, then there will be no backlash to feminism. Then genders being treated with equal respect would not feel threatening to their current power structure. What it means to be comfortable around an empowered woman is that she is going to call you on your shit, not in a bitchy way, but she's going to see you. I mean, maybe. I'm really trying to be to lose the bitchiness. It's like, you know, it's come back to me, and that's like not the way that I want to walk through the world. I want to make people feel good, so I'm trying to find that line of like, you know, maintaining my personal boundaries, but doing with compassion.
Oh my God, I'm in full support. Tell me how I can help you.
Why have I been mean to you?
No, actually you haven't. I can't recall a single time, but okay, sure. Okay. So I think though that the way in which that reactive I don't know if you want to use the phrase bitchy energy.
Yeah.
Very quick to put a man in his place. I think I've always carried a certain nervousness within me of, okay, when is this going to suddenly get lashed out at me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it makes it difficult it has made it difficult for me to fully trust you or to feel safe around you, because, well, first of all, like, I have my own wounds when it comes to women, ways in which my sensitive heart has been abused. And you talk about PTSD. Sometimes I feel like I get the triggers of my own relational PTSD when I watch your Facebook attacks. And there's this part of me that has felt like, okay, it's only a question of time before I say something unconsciously, or just a little bit off. Maybe isn't even necessarily what I mean, but it's going to be taken the wrong way by Arden, and the attack dog is going to come out. How am I going to deal with that when that occurs? And you're right, it never did. And, you know, that too is also a lesson in the ways in which our fears can continue to haunt us, whether or not the reality actually comes to be.
But also remember, like, you know, to give myself some credit here, you and I have not been without our moments of disagreement. Totally. And I've been really fair about that. Like, I've been really like, hey, Destin, just FYI, like, here's how I'm feeling about this. Let's gain some clarity on this. This is what I'm hearing from you. Like, I am very pro NVC, you know, like, nonviolent communication. Yeah. So I really feel that I give people a chance, and people have to, unless it's like a random Facebook comment from someone that I don't know, that I think is being, disrespectful. then I will, I'll call them out on that disrespect. Although certainly I try to use words that are like, I really try to like communicate that with rationality and not, and maybe it is that the sharpness of that kind of, like maybe it's the sharpness of me using my words to try and explicitly communicate dispassionately that maybe even makes it seem passionate, but I really try to take I've tried to take the New Yorker out of my bite. I really have made effort about that.
I'm wonderful to see that progress. Anyway, that's its own
that is its
can
own,
of worms that we could go down. And
I want to go back to where that
please.
question was. So what I was saying at the time before we got sidetracked was about men being comfortable around empowered women.
Yes.
And what's actually scarier, I think, for men than even, if a man gets rejected, if a man gets smacked down on Facebook or whatever, like they can just block me. It's not a big deal. But if they're,
you do it often enough.
I mean, I block people all the time. If someone's being rude to me, I don't need to deal with that. I don't need mental health triggers on my social media. So, I don't, but what's actually scarier for them, I think, is when they're accepted and when they're seen and even when they're loved. And I've certainly experienced this in my relationships of accepting the parts of people that they don't accept about themselves and being able to see those things and to create that space that makes it safe for them to bring those out, and being able even to, in that way that a seducer is so good at, as you and I know, to deal with people on that level of seeing the things that they're hiding, seeing the things that they're ashamed of, and creating that space of acceptance, and even being able to observe and tell people about their feelings before they're even really quite able to articulate them to you themselves, being able to see the truth in people, and never trying to override a person's truth, but just allowing the space for that insight and that intuition, and I found that when people are not ready to be seen in that capacity, when they still want to hide, that really causes them to reject you because they're rejecting themselves, because they're not ready to look in the mirror. So I think the most important, so that brings us to the next micro level down. So that was like the macro one, is like be comfortable around empowered women. But being comfortable around empowered women means being comfortable with yourself. Yeah. And letting them love you and letting them accept you. And not needing to prove your worth as a man by your ability to oppress them, your ability to keep women dependent on you. Like, oh, I got like my hoes and area codes, they all need me, so that means I'm the man. If you can understand that a woman is choosing you actually out of choice and not out of dependence, like from that place of fullness. And can you live with yourself? Can you live with the fact that she's choosing you, even though you feel all these flaws, you feel damaged, you feel like you're broken, you feel like you're not enough or whatever? Can you get the fuck over yourself, and allow yourself to show up and work on that, looking in the mirror, so you can accept yourself and love yourself, so that you can accept the love of a fully empowered woman too, who's loving you out of choice, because that's really scary. So that's one. And then like the next micro level down is about looking in the mirror, essentially about looking in the mirror as a man and saying like, what makes me happy? What am I what are my unconscious patterns? What am I focusing on here? What results am I getting in my life? Am I just in this power structure of like acquire more? Am I Donald Trump saying like, it's not enough that I'm president now, I have to prove my inauguration numbers too? Are you happy? Like, can you look in the mirror and look at your behavior and say, can you take responsibility for your life ultimately? Can you do that? Because is what's going to create that emotional intimacy in your relationships. And then finally, I think that part of that is, I think there are probably a lot of men who listen to your podcast who are really invested in the identity of being a good man. And that's a really good thing, because that will certainly motivate men to examine themselves and to do things. But there's a trend that I'm seeing, especially as feminism is such is so like, especially since the election, since it's such a word that's on everyone's lips, with the Women's March and the turnout there. And you're starting to see men some of them for the first time who are like, oh shit, if I'm not on this women's movement, like if I'm not on this bandwagon, I'm kind of one of the bad guys. Like I better start getting on this side. And that's a good thing, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But what I will say is that I really appreciate seeing men take up the cause of feminism, walk in the Women's March, spread the word on their social media about feminist issues. It's not enough just to go out and be a protester and to align yourself with a cause. You also need to take care of the women in your life. I remember once, I dated a musician years ago, and he had written this song about, some girl who was like, oh, she's so sad and I just want to comfort her. And like, or like, I'm trying like not to say the actual lyrics cause I don't want to like be a dick like that, but just this thing about this girl being sad. And he gave an interview where he was like, yeah. And I saw how much pain she was in and I just want, and my heart just like, it was just obviously this overflow of compassion. And, meanwhile, like, he like I talk about this in my in the epilogue of my book. It was like one of my at the time it was like my worst breakup ever. He left me like when I was in the hospital on my birthday. So like meanwhile, so like you have this guy who really wants to be a good dude and is like, oh look, and my roommate and I at the time like joked about this. We're like, okay, you could sit around and write a song about a girl who is sad, or you could actually be nice to an actual girl and not make her sad. I'm not saying like that he was obligated to date me, just because he wrote a song about someone else. Like obviously that would be a huge false equivalency. But what I'm saying is like, it's, are you going out on the Women's March, but like, but not showing up for the actual women in your life? And I think something that people are...
Hold on, what does it mean to you though to show up for the women in your life?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. That's kind of what I'm about to get to in saying that there's sort of a new thing that's entering the public dialogue lately, which is this idea of compassion as resistance, of caretaking as political activism. And what that means is caring for yourself, practicing self-care, and also caretaking your loved ones, the people around you. So it's like not just about going out and making sure you can protest. It's also about checking in on your friends and the people in your life and saying, how can I support you right now? What do you need from me right now? If I'm in a place of strength today, if I'm in a place where like I'm feeling ready to take on the world, what kind of emotional labor can I do for my friend who has spent all week hustling to support themselves because now they don't have healthcare anymore, or like what can I do on a personal level for the people in my life that I care about who are struggling because of the things the causes I need to advocate for. Like if I need to go march for women, how can I show up for a woman in my life who's not being paid as much as her male coworker? Like, can I, how can I, it's like, I can go out and I can march about sexual assault, but what do I say to my buddies? Like, statistically speaking, probably at least one guy in my friend group is a rapist. Do I know who it is? Like, do I talk to my buddies about sexual consent? Do I, if I see a woman at a bar and there's a man who's like, by all appearances, making her uncomfortable, do I lean over at some point and say like, do you need me to get you out of here? Like, do you need me to call you a cab? Like, do I do things on that level? It's not enough just to align yourself with causes and post a Facebook poster picture of you in like a pink cat hat, like it's not like, thank you for adding your voice, but like, are you also looking to protect people in your life that you care about? What are you doing for what are you doing for actual women in your life? And that also goes, of course, like for people of color. It also goes for especially for people who are Muslim right now. Like, you know, it's like there's more stress, even emotionally, on the people who are being affected by the current policies, you know, that may mean like if there's like, you know, if there's like a Muslim woman of color in your life right now, have you considered like buying her groceries one week just because she's probably really stressed the fuck out? You know, like what can you do for the people in your life to make sure that they are feeling okay and emotionally supported? Does that make sense?
I think you laid it out very clearly, and with very specific actions that a man can take as well. Yeah, I really want to thank you for being with me today and sharing your words, your wisdom, your life experience with the group. You're such a colorful individual, which mirrors my own.
I'm leaving this podcast today with like I'm going to be like, oh my God, I'm an awful person and I'm weird and wild and out of control. Like I already get paranoid about that. I already get paranoid about the fact that like I can't rein it in.
What's so weird, wild, and out of control? How does that relate to awful?
Well,
I say those are some of your best qualities.
Oh, well, as a woman in life, if you are not in control of yourself, you are judged very harshly. You know, you are not supposed to be emotional. Because then you're crazy. You know, you're not supposed to. You're supposed to be in control of what you eat. Otherwise, you're not attractive. You know, you risk. You know, like when you think about that Karl Lagerfeld quote about sweatpants, when he's like, sweatpants made you, like, basically means that you gave up on life. Like you ruined your life, and so you went out and bought some sweatpants. And that, like, ouch, for a woman, like, being like, that's not the exact, but that's, you know, I'm paraphrasing, but that's pretty much the gist of it. And for a woman, like, being out of control means you are a couple of meltdowns away from buying some sweatpants and just giving up on having control of your life, you know? So I try to be in control. No one wants to be a liability, you know?
I think that you have a lot to offer. I experienced the lot that you have to offer, both to my audience and to me on a personal level, as well as to my fiance Ellie, people in our lives, the impact I see you have on your own audience. Your voice is weird and wild and out of control in all the best ways, and we need you.
Thank you.
Keep speaking up. And how can our listeners find out more about you?
Oh, yeah. My blog is Arden Leigh, ARDENLEIGH.typepad.com. If you just Google Arden Leigh, I come up a lot of places, but most of my social media is at Arden Sirens, ARDENSIRENS. And that is Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and Facebook is Arden Leigh. So yeah. Come say hi. And I'm really trying to work on not smacking people down so much, or at least being really super nice about it when I do. My experience of your Facebook comment is that you were just disrespectful to me. What was your experience of it?
Please do check her out. Always a pleasure to connect with you, and glad we get to have some more time together today.
Samesies. Thank you.
You have been listening to The Evolved Masculine, Redefining Sex, Power, and Success. This is Destin Garrick. See you next week.